Hola, buenas tardes a todos. ¿Cómo están? ¿Todo bien? Yeah. You guys enjoying Miami weather? How's your Spanish? Can we do this in Spanish? Yeah? All right. Well, thank you, everyone, for coming and joining me in this talk. And we're just going to discuss some of our efforts on what are we doing in cybersecurity for solar energy systems and other distributed energy resources. So you have heard in some talks today that our grid is changing. And more of clean energy technology is being deployed, and this is because of different reasons. It could be implementation of federal laws, tax credits, cost reduction, climate change goals. I actually talked to someone here when we were walking into the botanical gardens that was mentioning that they install PV or photovoltaic systems and battery just because they are located in a hurricane-prone environment, and they wanted to increase their resilience. So also climate change is also driving the adoption of these systems. But what does it mean in the context of cybersecurity? Well, it means that more connected devices, right, including just not solar PV, but also smart appliances, intelligent edge devices, and others, are being integrated into our distribution system. And that is changing the way we operate, we manage, and we envision controls and communication for our energy sector. So that is the result of that is that we may have to rethink how we do cybersecurity for energy systems moving forward. And this slide represents one of our results of solar future study that our office conducted, I believe was last year. And it is expected, according to the projections, that 50% of our electricity will come from solar PV technologies. And these technologies include more distributed, so they're located in remote areas sometimes. They're geographically dispersed. And they incorporate power electronics, as I mentioned a minute ago. And it induces more connectivity and it could potentially increase some of the vulnerabilities and just induce some emerging issues that we all need to think about and we all need to find solutions for. So what is our approach to cybersecurity? So the Solar Energy Technology Office, or CETO, we collaborate really close with other DOE offices. And we have a portfolio that touches on cybersecurity. And I'm happy to announce that I'm the lead of that effort. And it's so wonderful to see such a collaborative effort by multiple stakeholders, such as our national laboratories, industry, standards organizations. And our vision is to achieve the highest levels of cybersecurity for solar technologies. And these include equipment, supply chain, facilities, as well as looking at impacts on the bulk and distribution electric grids. So we are focusing on electric grids with high penetration of photovoltaics and other distributed energy resources. And some of the topics that we're looking at are standards development, best practice, assessment tools, education and training. And we heard a little bit of some of this during the morning session with our CSIR director. So we're definitely in alignment with what the broader DOE scope of work is. So let's talk a little bit about some of the implementation and deployment of these systems. So here you see some pictures that represent what the bulk generation looks like, and then the distribution side. And if you go from, the picture shows some of the electricity flows, some of the data flows, and when you go to the distribution side, then you may have, as I mentioned before, some of the smaller scale behind-the-meter devices, and those are the ones that generate electricity from the customer side, and those have two bidirectional power flows. So we need more controls and enabling technologies to actually accommodate the operations of these systems. And then you see what it looks like rooftop solar deployment in this picture. And here you see how a combination of devices needs to work together. So you have the solar PV in your roof, and you have the inverter who's allow you to use the electricity generated by the panel. And then you have smart devices like the electric vehicle, battery storage, your smart refrigerator, your smart toaster, your smart thermostat, and all of this generating higher volumes of data. But if you see the picture, they're also integrating with the distribution system. So these do not work in isolation. So definitely the whole configuration of distributed, decentralized, decarbonized, democratized, and all the Ds that these different reports show, it's just changing again the way we think about as consumers, how do we use the electricity, and now we generate electricity, so electricity is coming from different points where it was not, the system traditionally was not designed to accommodate these changes. Not only that, we have multiple stakeholders now taking a role, and what is their cybersecurity role in this context, right? So you have here the slide mentioned the manufacturers, the vendors, asset owners. Now you have homeowners too that are also generating electricity, and all the enabling technologies required to actually make this work. So you have cloud computing, and you have artificial intelligence making your home be more energy efficient, for example. Smart sensors, edge analytics, and all of these things create a new landscape. And the vulnerabilities are yet to be known, understood, and the impacts of the DR cyber attack are yet understood as well. Not to mention that the smaller behind-the-meter systems may not have a cybersecurity requirement or standards. So that's something that we need to take in consideration when we're moving forward with our 2050 goals and all the deployment that we need to complete to actually achieve some of the decarbonization goals. So a recent study back in December 2022 between the IEEE and NERC, the study, the report showed the results of the study on integrating cyber and physical security for a more reliable, resilient, and secure energy sector. Because we cannot lose perspective that as we move forward into the clean energy transition, we also need to ensure the highest levels of reliability and resilience of our energy sector. And industry, from the industry perspective, the top two main risks are changing resource mix, which is what we was talking about, changing the generation mix, including solar, wind, and other distributed energy resources, and also cybersecurity vulnerabilities. So another study also published recently in a joint effort by the Cybersecurity, Energy Security, and Emergency Response, which is CSER, sorry, two DOE offices, and the Energy Efficiency and Renewable Energy Office, which is where CETO lives. They provided recommendations or considerations, cybersecurity considerations for distributed energy resources that are connected in the U.S. electric grid. So here in the slide, you can see a summary of some of the threat scenarios that are shown into the report, and also what would be the consequences, right, if this is one of these occurs. So some of the recommendations provided by the report are for the industry to work more together with energy, with the energy sector and industry to work more together with government. And you've seen some of the labs around, so I encourage you to talk to them. Also understand the DER cyber attacks impacts to the main grid, and also understand the cybersecurity role and responsibility of each of these stakeholders. And so some of those considerations, and with that in mind, we have multiple projects, but in here I will talk about our Securing Solar for the Grid project and how we're taking a cyber-physical integrated approach to address some of these emerging challenges that are also creating opportunities for this community also to engage with us and then try to find solutions. And we have 5 research areas. So we focus on standards and certifications, supply chain, risk assessment and mitigation, cyber-physical network monitoring, and workforce development. For this particular presentation, I'll focus on risk assessment and mitigation, cyber-physical network monitoring, and the standards and certification, and give you how those 3 areas work together. If any of you want to know more about what we're doing in workforce development and supply chain, we can address those during the Q&A. So in the risk assessment and mitigation tools, we have Idaho National Laboratory, which some of you are very familiar because Ginger Wright is around and some of the INL folks are around. And what they're doing here is they're taking the lead and deliver a standardized and repeatable cybersecurity evaluation methodology that is tuned to the characteristics of the renewable industry. And they have gone, how they do that? Let's just start there. They're leveraging existing tools. They're leveraging Department of Homeland Security CISA tool and tune it to the solar industry. What they're finding is that in some of those, there has to be some sort of customization because some of the standards found in these tools may not be as complete to actually address some of the challenges related to the industry. And they did this as a control-based approach. They're using customizing the CIS V8 as a guide. And what they're targeting, or the customers they're targeting, are aggregators, asset owners, operators. And if anyone is interested in participating, please let me know, and I'll connect you with the researchers. And what happens after someone is connected with the researchers, they go through the guided cybersecurity assessment, and risk-based report is generated to enhance cybersecurity programs. And what they're finding is that the different entities that they talk about, they may or may not have a cybersecurity program. So, as I mentioned, there's a variety of stakeholders, different cybersecurity postures, different maturity levels, so we need to accommodate to actually help all of them. So to mitigate that if they go in and they may not have a cyber team, they're deploying a network traffic analysis tool that they call Malcolm. And then from this, they can identify what the assets, they can draw some network diagram, and then from there, they can start the assessment. So therefore, they're trying to accommodate, or they're making an effort to accommodate every single stakeholder. It doesn't matter your maturity level. So in terms of, so once you have your risk assessment completed, and based on your business processes, you can know, or you can identify where do you need to make investments. And we go into what's next, right? So we're also working on cyber-physical network monitoring, and this effort is led by Sandia National Laboratory. And what they're doing here is that they're developing a standardized methodology for this assessment. And they're using the security automation and security orchestration and automation response. And they are trying to streamline case management, threat intelligence, information sharing for solar stakeholders. So they're targeting, this is a system level approach, so they're targeting to, by the end of this fiscal year, to have some of these assessments completed. And their response time is about 30 seconds. And it's automated, but it's automated for some predetermined events. So when there's an unidentified anomaly, then you still will need the human in the loop. So, but they're not only looking at network level monitoring. They're integrating a physical component. So they're taking data from the inverter. They're taking voltage data, power, active and reactive power data, and that's what you see on the bottom of the slide. And you can see there the dips and ups on the different of the performance of the inverter, utilizing these 3 parameters. And they are then now integrating the physical data with the network monitoring data, ingested into a machine learning approach for processing and analytics and generating alarms. This approach resulted into an R&D 100 that the team won, and that was a big achievement for the community. And all of these tools, risk mitigation and assessment, and the network monitoring, are tools that we're looking at and seeing the results and seeing some of the challenges in the community and seeing what is needed to develop some standards and certifications for distributed energy resources. So some of the upcoming guides and DER certifications are displayed here. So this is work that's coming from the National Renewable Energy Laboratory. And they are working on a IEEE 1547.3 draft guide for cybersecurity of distributed energy resources interconnected with electric power systems. They're also working on an outline of investigation for cybersecurity, distributed energy and inverter-based resources with UL. And some may say, why do we need more standards? Why do we need another one? And the team did an assessment and gap analysis on all the standards that exist to come up with this specific one. As I mentioned, right, there's no requirement right now for cybersecurity certification for the inverter-based, for some of the inverter-based resources. So they're working very diligently in identifying and leveraging existing standards and work to actually develop this set of testing requirements. So some of the testing requirements are authentication, cryptography, data management, and product management. They have a list of 10 different testing requirements. And so right now, the outline for investigations is under review. And these requirements will provide a single and unified approach for testing and certifications of these systems in advance of deployment. And then their certification will be applicable for generation and energy storage technologies. So if anybody wants to get engaged into this process, please let me know. We have the researchers from Errol as well, so you can also talk to them. We met with some of the ISA folks around here. There are also some engaged in the project, so that was really, really good. I'm happy to have met you here. And so just to summarize, we're taking a multi-stakeholder approach to identify where the vulnerabilities are, where the impacts are, where the security roles and responsibilities are, because we understand that this is going to have a successful program. And we are prioritizing some of the road that we're taking to cybersecurity for these systems is prioritizing advanced cyber discovery, vulnerability assessment, and rapid risk mitigation, accelerate cybersecurity research and development to strengthen the clean energy technologies, understand DER, cyber risk, and impacts to the power grid, and ensure that every stakeholder has the highest level of cybersecurity maturity. And that will become very, very critical if we want to secure our clean energy future. And with that, thank you very much. So I'm told if you have questions, you have to stand up and use your microphone.
Hey, thanks for the presentation. Thanks also for some of the resources that you highlighted. I'm just curious, and I'll go and read the report after, but curious from your research as well as so that report and others, where you listed the different DER attack scenarios.
Mm-hmm.
Have you been seeing primarily like localized impacts because this is all pretty distributed, or are there cases where there's maybe a single vendor, a single product, single system that is distributed broadly that you see attacks with widespread impacts?
So I personally have not seen any attacks, but that's me personally, right? I encourage you to talk to the researchers. Some of them are here in the room. But one thing to keep in mind and not to lose perspective of is that one single attack may not induce any critical failure. But what we're looking at here is the coordinated and orchestrated type of attack, and then how do we secure for that and make the impacts minimum, right? So I believe that what is highlighted in the report was years of research from our offices, and what we believe is, I think, a little start to what do we need to start looking at, and what kind of technologies we could deploy to mitigate those type of scenarios.
Great, looking forward to reading it. Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other question? All right. Well, thank you so much, everyone, and have a wonderful afternoon.